Happy Easter, everyone. In the Christian tradition, He is risen. That is the statement that you will hear much today as you go to churches and different places celebrating the resurrection of our Savior. So, He is risen indeed. Welcome today from the River Rock Inn in Arlington, Washington. This is in the Cascade Foothills, a little north of Seattle. And sorry for the earpieces today, but it's early in the morning and I don't want to wake up the other guests. And so many of you probably don't know this, but if you looked at my resume, you'll see that right after I left the corporate world, my wife and I bought an 18-room boutique hotel and a fine dining restaurant north of Seattle, and it was our way of retiring and moving into a different phase of our lives. And that was about, 15 years ago. And then about 10 years ago, we sold our property, but we've stayed connected with different hospitality properties across the country. Our consulting company is called N Connections, LLC. And my wife does quality assurance work with the Washington Bed and Breakfast Guild and knows every square inch of the state of Washington as it relates to bed and breakfast properties. And this property here is really award-winning. It's one of those stunning places that our dear friends Bob and Lisa Watkins built themselves many years ago here in, again, north of Seattle in the Cascade Foothills. I wish I could just pan around here and you could see the 6 acres here, because it's just loaded with fir trees, and this River Rock fireplace behind us is really the signature for that. And I still have a big place in my heart for bed and breakfast owners, country inn owners, and small businesses in general, because those are people who are really going for it. And Bob and Lisa here are prime examples of that as well. So enough about that. Let's talk about Lesson 3 recap, Lesson 4 preview for MSOM 602. This week you had a discussion board question that had you review Spear's 10 servant leadership characteristics, and I asked you to just give me your top 5. I know that was a difficult assignment to do, but as I mentioned in that, I was much more interested in why you picked the 5 that you picked versus actually which ones you picked. And so I love seeing the rationale that you had on that. Many of you picked some of the same ones I did. One of the first ones that I picked always is listening. And so I would ask you, as you're looking at the responses on this, I graded this one. This is another kind of gimme, because how can I tell you what your opinion is on those when I ask you for them? This is, I'd ask you to take a look at my responses on that. I've posted my 5 and the reasons that I picked the 5 that I did there. So take a look at those. Those will be in the grade book under discussion 1, grades for you. So top 5 servant leadership characteristics for you and for me. And then case study number 1 was really about Colleen Barrett. You had a video that you got to watch, and then you also had to read the conversation that Ms. Barrett had between Ken Blanchard and Colleen. And I really like the way that book is designed for that very reason, because it's more conversational, and I think you really get more to the point of what's happening there. So that was really your impressions and your comments on Colleen Barrett and her approach to servant leadership. And really the reason that I provided that as part of a case study is to give you a classic application example of how one very large company has implemented servant leadership characteristics, and just to show you that it does work, and it works for big companies. And then the second case study this week was an interesting one about the DMV. And the comment that keeps coming back to me on this one, and one that I think about regularly, and I hope that you do too, is the comment that the director made at the DMV that says, my job is to reorganize the department on a moment-by-moment basis based upon what the consumers need. And if you really have that approach as you go forward in business, how would that really change what you do and how you do it? And so if you really think about that, there are 2 key things there. One is being able to have the freedom and the empowerment of your employees to reorganize because one person simply can't do it. And then secondly is an incredible focus on the consumer. And I think about that, here in the bed and breakfast world with Bob and Lisa, we're talking about that. I mentioned that post or that quote to them earlier, and they say they do that all the time because each guest gives you an opportunity to really impress them or disappoint them. And so they do things differently just based upon who walks through the door. And it's something that perhaps you can remember in your business. So that was lesson 3. Lesson 4 coming up this next week um, really goes back to the first week. And I did that on purpose because halfway through the class, I'm trying to get, the initial thing that you had with the Drew Dudley video, and perhaps that gave you some ideas on what you wanted to believe that leadership and servant leadership was all about. And now halfway through, I want you to revisit that. And so the question is leadership caught or taught? Or, said another way, are you born with leadership tendencies, or is it something that you can learn, or is it something that is trainable? Because heaven knows we all have been to leadership development classes, if you've ever had any corporate level training and things like that. So that assumption is that they can teach leadership. And so there's some videos that you'll see, there's some comments that you'll see. I would encourage you to do some external research on this one. This one may be one, again, that you may not find peer-reviewed articles on, but certainly there are opinions that are out there. Warren Bennis, in the video that I provided here, talks about leadership being caught or taught. And so just don't give an opinion without support on this one, though, because I really want you to think long and hard about this one. So the discussion board this week will be, and could be, and should be lively, and don't be afraid to have different opinions than other people on this one. The memo exercise will be the second one this time. I remember in the first one, some of you provided all the what, why, and so what. That's not what I wanted you to do. I wanted you to just to do and focus on one at a time. So the first memo exercise that you completed a couple of lessons ago was the what, or what is servant leadership. Now in this one, I'm really looking for you to provide the why. Why is your organization moving to servant leadership? Anytime that you're going to be communicating anything to employees and asking them to do something, it's very important for you to explain why. Why, from your perspective, is servant leadership the model that your organization has chosen to move towards? And so you have to be very, very focused on these, particularly in change situations. If you're taking an organization that may not have been very focused at all on servant leadership, and you're moving to servant leadership, they're going to say, well, why are we doing this? Isn't what we're currently doing working? Hasn't it worked for us for 20, 30, 40, 50 years? So why are we changing, and why are we moving in that direction? So you have to be very compelling in your reasons and your rationale for this one. So I'll be interested to see why. Now again, make sure that you don't go back and do what. You may want to provide a brief recap at the start just to remind people of what's going on. But make sure that you just focus on why on this one. And then the course project is due for the first half of your narrative. Now, what you've provided for me so far is your outline. I don't need to see that again. So don't send that as part of your project. But what you're providing now is really half of the narrative for your full course project. So make sure that you focus on those particular things. It'll be all narrative, no bullet points. Again, I've had people in the past who just kind of fill in the blanks from their outline and they put bullet points in there. That's not what I'm looking for. This is the actual writing, the actual narrative. Make sure that you focus on those specific things that I'm asking for in the course project for the Part 2 submission. So focus on those. That doesn't mean, however, that you can't add additional things. I've had students before say, hey, I'm thinking of adding a couple of different things. Is that okay? Absolutely. This is not something where I want to be so hard and fast to say you got to provide exactly what I'm looking for. If there are things that will work for the company that you're building this servant leadership plan for or evaluating, then by all means make sure that you do that. But just make sure that you cover those, at least the items that I'm asking for in the overall direction for that. All right? I hope you have a great week. I'm going to be stateside now for, gosh, it seems like a long time. We'll be traveling around the U.S., though, quite a bit over the next few weeks. And so I'm accessible. My cell phone is working, and if you need to talk to me, make sure you contact me. Again, happy Easter. Hope you have a great day.